I'm just gonna get things kind of warmed up, and I made a statement earlier about the 350 Day of Action and how much it reminded me of the global protests that happened on the run-up to the war in Iraq, and how it essentially, it didn't stop the war. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was sharing a panel with Vandana Shiva and Kathy Pedler and a nun whose name I never can remember. Can you hear me okay? Okay, anyway, I was sharing a panel maybe a year and a half ago with those three, and all of us on the panel understood that we don't live in a democracy. And, I asked people all over the country, do you believe we live in a democracy? Nobody ever says yes. If you ask, does the US or Canadian government, doesn't matter which, take better care of corporations or human beings? We all know the answer to that. And does it, a government of occupation, what it does, the way you can really define it is that what it does is it moves in, it facilitates resource extraction and maximizes production. That's what it does. It doesn't take care of communities. And, we don't have, we are under a government of occupation. And of course, my American Indian friends say, so what the hell took you so long to figure this one out? Anyway, so we're sitting there on this panel talking, and we all accept that we don't live in a democracy. And everybody in the audience accepts that we don't live in a democracy. And then at one point during our panel, I turned to the nun who does this great anti-war work. She's a wonderful anti-war activist. I turned to her and I said, so how would your activism be different? And how would you act to stop the war differently if you fully internalize the understanding that we don't live in a democracy? And she turned to me and she said, I have no idea. And so that's one of the lessons we get from this today is I'm not saying that we shouldn't mobilize and we shouldn't organize. Of course, we need to mobilize, we need to organize, but we should never forget that the function of the government, any government really, is to serve those in power. And we should also never forget that those in power are quite often psychopaths. And about a week ago tomorrow, I was interviewed by Chris Hedges for an article that came out last Monday on Truthdig, and it's gotten a lot of play. And during the interview, one of the things that didn't make it to the final draft was, he said, you talk about, the need to bring down civilization and the need to act decisively to defend the planet. And so does that mean that does that mean that you sort of don't really like people like Bill McKibben? And I said, no, that's not it at all for a couple reasons. One is that I think that I'm not one of those people who believes in the reform versus revolution dichotomy. But I think if we all wait for the great glorious revolution, there's not going to be anything left. And if at the same time all we do is reform work and all we do is beg, then this culture is going to continue to grind away. I think we need it all. And so if this is seen as one part of a broader culture of resistance, then I think that's really great and really important. If somehow people believe that all we need to do is to petition the king, I mean the government, then that's not very helpful because it's still begging, because asking without the power to back it up, to say or else, is merely begging. And begging isn't sufficient. And there have to be consequences. I mean, before we got on the Skype here, or before I went public here, when Frank was talking to me privately, he asked if I had watched the film that he sent me today that he showed you. And I said no, because I got burgled again. And I've been burgled like 8 times in the last year and a half. And it's getting really old. And for a while, it's like, well, maybe they will just quit on their own. And then after that, it was like, well, I need to take care of myself. And so one of the things I've done, I mean, I have a gun for one thing, but that's not really the point. The point right now is that I got video cameras, and I've got their pictures. I now have their names because it's a small community, and I showed the videotapes to. It's very nice. I mean, just they're so stupid. They wore bandanas coming into the house, and once they got in the house, they took the bandanas off. And it's just a smile for the cameras, motherfucker. And it's a small town, so I got their names. And last week, I went to a private investigator because I still didn't really want to go to the cops. I went to a private investigator, and he was going to go scare them by saying, "Look, you're either going to go to prison or you're going to stop." But they came again today, so fuck it. I'm going to the cops. And the point is that when I was going to, before today, what I was going to do is I was going to send the private investigator to talk to them and to ask them to stop. But he wasn't going to simply ask them to stop. He was going to say, either you stop or you go to prison. Because in California, burglary of a residence is a mandatory prison sentence and a mandatory felony. You can't plead it down. So he was going to ask them nicely. It's like the old Al Capone line. You get a lot more respect when you ask. Let's see, how's it go? You get more respect when you use a nice word in a gun than you do when you use just a nice word. And the point is that if 350, if all it is just begging, then we're even more fucked than we think we are. But if it's part of organizing a larger culture of resistance, that's great. I want to say one more thing, which is that only 2% of the IRA ever picked up weapons. 98% of the people did support work. Before you had the IRA, you had 800 years or 900 years of British occupation, but you also had like the Gaelic language revival and the literature revival. And those are important parts of any culture of resistance. I love to make fun of pacifists, but the truth is you couldn't have had underground railroads without the Quakers. And so we need the 350 movement as an above ground arm of a movement to stop this. But I got to say one more thing. I don't like 350. I think it should be called the 250 movement, because giving 350, that's really fucked up. Because what carbon dioxide levels have to be is pre-industrial. And so it should really be called the 250 movement, but they didn't ask me. Anyway, so that's my quick overview.
Hello.
Hey.
I have two questions. The first one's really quick. It's like, where do you align yourself along a political spectrum? In that, do you consider yourself a left libertarian, socialist, humanist, what have you, if you want to give yourself a label, which you probably don't? That's the first one. The second one is you're very anti-civilization in general. Are there any civilizations you believe have closely or have come anywhere near close to what you would consider sustainable or human? Personally, I think post-Civil War Spanish anarchist society probably represents that to me. Is there a society that ever represented that to you or was close? And what is it? Thank you.